what I was seeing, like a small child, 5 years old, see Mike running straight to my car as fast as she could in the middle of Veterans, wearing no shoes, just wearing socks. Put on my blinkers, I jumped out the car and I tried to grab her and so now I have no idea. Where does she live? Who's her mom? Enough?
Okay,
So did we end up posting on Nextdoor or no? Because I didn't post.
to my knowledge, it was posted by
Okay.
AJ.
Okay.
He let me know that he had posted.
Okay. Well, as long as, look, all we can do is what we can do. Yeah.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. Can you hear me? I'm getting ahead.
Why
Yeah.
don't you ask them to talk to? I'd like to hear.
Can
what-
Can we
we,
test the sound on your end as well?
can somebody give us a hello so we can hear you? Make sure we have a little echo.
Try
We can
to-
hear you. Okay, good.
Can
Donna,
everybody say something?
Mara.
I did. I said hi.
We can
Hi.
hear you.
There was a
Hi.
huge echo. There was a huge echo, so we couldn't tell what was happening.
Okay, this is Hal Taylor, so. hopefully
Welcome,
you can-
Hal. Nice to see you. Donna, hello. Tyler, hello.
Hey, Mimi.
Okay, everyone. Well, with that, then it's 5:40. Would you like to call the roll, Nick?
Sure thing. Mimi Fuji Strickler,
Here.
Steven Schwartzer, Patrick Fisher, Jack Heineman. Here. Donna Keats, Tyler Langdon,
Here.
Mara Langer,
Here.
got it right that time. Al Taylor,
Here,
it looks like we have a quorum.
All right, thank you
Oh,
so
and
much.
we have Councilmember Naomi Dewar. and
Here.
Nick Sidoni, myself here.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
And then Donna, we couldn't really hear you when you said something. So,
Oh, I think I just said here.
oh, excellent.
That's better.
Now we can hear you great.
Thank you.
Do we have any public comment? Okay, seeing
No
none.
public comment?
No public comment this evening. All right, we'd like to move to A3, approval of the minutes from May 24th. Did everybody have a chance to review those? Me too. All right, I'm looking for a motion to approve the minutes.
I move to approve the minutes.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. And then we're looking to approve the minutes from March 15th. Did everybody have a chance to review those minutes?
Yes.
Any changes?
No.
Oh, okay. A motion to approve the minutes.
I move to approve the minutes.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Either Jack or Marge is second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Minutes approved. Council liaison
And-
report.
I'm sorry, this is Hal Taylor. I recused on both of those because I was not present at the meetings.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I'll appreciate that. All right, Councilwoman Dewar.
Oh, sure. Hi, everyone. How's everyone? Doing pretty well?
Yep. Good,
Good to
thank you.
see you. Hey, I wanted to report on a couple town hall meetings that we held last week on Monday. One of them we put on the agenda and it is item B1. And the other one is not on the agenda, so I wanted to report on during my council report. So we had one meeting about horses, wild horses, and our next steps in our fencing plan. And the other one was about the improvements that are planned for Steamboat Parkway and the adjoining Demonte Ranch Parkway and Veterans Parkway. And it's a very exciting project. RTC gave an outstanding presentation. There was a lot of public online and they really gave some good feedback. I wanted to generally, we had the presentation here at our, from RTC, you might remember, and I believe it was, don't know if it was our last meeting or
It
the
was.
meeting before.
At our last meeting.
Okay. So it was such a good presentation and the comments were so good at the NAB meeting that I had suggested that they hold a public workshop and they agreed. And I'm going to give you, just summarize some of the interesting public comment that we heard. So there were some concerns about Winter's Corner. So if you're down in South Reno and you know kind of what the layout is, there's a new gas station convenience store going in on the corner of Steamboat and Veterans. And right now it would allow a right in, meaning you're driving down Steamboat, you could take a right into this convenience area and you could come out the same entrance and take a right out. The problem is that the right out puts you into the right turning lane to take a right onto Veterans. And in order to go straight and not on the right turning lane, you would have to cross the turning lane. And we all know that traffic tends to stack up there. And so the people on the Zoom brought that to their attention and said, are you going to allow them to turn out? Because a very short distance from where the entrance is, exit to the light. It's maybe, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 cars, maybe at the most, maybe 4. And so that's a potential issue that they brought up and RTC said, wow, we didn't think about it. Another issue right there is like, imagine that you're coming from the Maverick on Veterans Roundabout. You're driving up Veterans and you want to take a left onto Steamboat, okay? Or let's say you want to get into this convenience store. Well, there's no way to get into the convenience store if you're coming north on Veterans. What you would have to do is take a U-turn on Veterans so that you could get into the entrance into the Winter's Corner. So they hadn't thought about that. And so once the public brought that up, they said, wow, we might have to plan for that and change lights for that. And that's something we need to take into consideration. Another issue that came up was that right now it's kind of every person for themselves when you are on Demonte Ranch Parkway and you want to take a left onto Steamboat. As you know, there is no go straight. It's a dead end. You know, it goes for about, I don't know, maybe 50 feet, 100 feet, and then it dead ends. So everybody that comes down Demonte Ranch Parkway is taking a left. So what they're going to do is put 3 turning lanes. And right now there's only 2 and they're not striped. So everyone is trying to get into the farthest most left lane. and take a left, and it's kind of like I said, every person for themselves. What they're gonna do now is put in 3 turning lanes, that 2 of which are striped. Like if you're in that turning lane, you can only stay in your lane. And if you're in the center, the 3rd over right turning lane, and this is really very similar to what they have at when you're coming down McCarran and you're headed towards Meadowood Mall. If you guys know where I mean, where McCarran hits South Virginia, there are 3 turning lanes there. And they're all striped, so you turn right onto Virginia. Or if you're on Virginia and you're turning left onto McCarran and Meadowood Mall, there are 3 turning lanes and they're all striped. So it's very much like those kind of intersections. So you wouldn't be fighting for position. So that will be good. Now, here's something people brought up that I found fascinating. There were people that care about biking and walking. And they said, how about us? Where do we fit in this plan? And they really didn't fit in the plan very well. So one of the things that came up is, could we do what we did over at Ranchera? And if you go back years now, if you remember, one of the requirements that I proposed and that was accepted was that Ranchera build a trail along the lake ditch. And therefore, people could avoid the heavy traffic areas of McCarran, Kitsky Lane, Neal Road Roundabout, and they could cut behind Ranchera and join up with Del Monte. And that allowed a continuous bike path or walking path. Well, the same idea came up, but could they allow continuous bike or walking to connect to the trail system rather than go along these heavy duty roads? And I'll tell you why that's particularly a good idea, and I was really impressed that it came up, is that I had asked the RTC to present how many traffic accidents there are on Steamboat. Now, let's think about this for a minute. How long do you think Steamboat is? And maybe you would be able to guess, but I would say Jack lives down there. Maybe it's, 3/4 of a mile, something like that. It's not a very long road. 70 accidents in 5 years. 70 accidents in 5 years. And if you look at Veterans, which is just adjacent, and it's much longer, it's maybe a couple miles long, 7 accidents in like 3 years.
Wow.
So here are 2 adjoining roads. One has 70 accidents, one has 7, in a kind of a similar time period. And even if we upped it to 5 years for that one, it'd probably be 10 accidents. So it's very different order of magnitude. So clearly this is a very busy area, a very scary area, a very difficult to drive area. So I was extremely pleased. They said they were very positive, RTC, on this meeting, and they said that they plan to take all these comments into consideration. And they said something very surprising as well. When they were here at the NAB, they were talking about starting construction this fall. And by the time they held this public workshop, they had already decided to delay construction until next spring. And the reason is, it's kind of an interesting reason. They didn't want to start construction, then have winter come, have the cones out all winter long. And it's that feeling that we're under construction. You see these orange cones and you feel there's probably a name for this, this sort of orange cone land. And we think RTC can never finish their project. So they're trying something new. They're going to start in spring and try to finish within that summer construction season and not have it span 2 construction seasons. So even though we'd like them to start sooner, on the other hand, there's the trauma of having to deal with these drive zones. So that was a new thing, a new idea. I really thought we were having a groundbreaking this fall, but we are not. So I just wanted to report on that. That was a pretty long presentation. I don't want to take a lot more time, but I did want to mention that at the city, we just adopted the budget for next year. And it's in the $930 million range of the total budget. They're of interest. There are 14 new police officers or staff in this budget, which is very unusual. Over the last 3 years, we've added 19. I believe it was in, would have been probably in 2019 and 2021 is when we did the ads. And now we're doing it again in 2022, this time 14. The net of those 3 years is 31 positions. So that's quite an improvement. When you think that there's 350 both sworn and not sworn is the way I understand it. So ones that carry guns and ones that don't. It's almost a 10% increase. So that's a fairly significant thing for the city. At the same time, last year, we agreed to add 30 firefighter positions. So almost a similar amount. And they have a smaller staff. Their staff's probably in the, gonna say 250, 280 range. So that was actually more than a 10% add for those folks, a little bit more. So anyway, those are very significant public safety ads. And I think you all know that we're also working on our new police headquarters, renovating the RGJ building, the Reno Gazette Journal building. We're also in this bond initiative that we passed about 2 weeks ago. We also included starting work on design work on a fire headquarters as well, not building it, but designing it. And then, of course, we have something very near and dear to all of our hearts in Ward 2, which is, and on the whole city, which is the new Moana Pool Aquatic Center. So that was approved as well. So those are some exciting, very unusual developments for our community in general. We have just spent money paying down debt. We have not gone into debt in, well, the whole time I've been on council, so 8 years and longer, all we've done is pay down debt. And we haven't been able to deal with these very necessary public use projects like a pool, like a police headquarters. And now we're in a financial position where we can, or we can see a way to do it. And so we are. So I think those are probably some of the bigger items. I'll talk about the horses when we get there. And are there any questions from either the board, NAB, or our public? Anyone? Nothing?
I have a comment. So I posted that out on, I think it was Damani Ranch's neighborhood.
On next door?
No, on the Facebook page.
Oh,
And there was lots of like statements and comments. I included you. So I'm glad to hear that there was a town hall and there was a lot more feedback and that the public got to give them their interpretation and really great suggestions and ideas.
yeah. So you put this on the Damani Ranch Facebook page? Is that what you said?
Neighborhood Facebook page, yeah.
Okay. All
I
right.
tagged you on it, yeah.
Well, if I'm not a member, even if you tag me, it's a private group, but I'm just gonna
Oh.
see if I am a member. I might be. People put me on a lot of different groups, so who knows? But anyway, how about from our visitors? Anything? Nothing? Okay, so back to you, Mimi.
All right, thank you so much. With that, we'll go to B, business items. The City of Reno, Virginia Range Horse Safety Concerns Update.
Oh, I thought, didn't we have staff liaison report?
Did I just move right past that?
Yeah.
No worries.
Sorry, Nick, you're up. Staff liaison report. I just put a check and moved right on.
No worries. Just in basis of my update is considerable work for Councilmember Dewar. I know it's been a while since we last met, so I just wanted to say the Arbor Day and Earth Day events went really well. We did some really cool things for some of the people that have really prioritized trees and our tree canopy in the area. So I was really proud of the work that we did together on that. And I'm continuing to work on, I believe I've told the group here, but working on sending some high school students from Damani Ranch to the Van Gogh exhibits.
So yeah, I had put some of my council money towards this. I just thought they actually have classes, art classes, and they could set up a curriculum where they talk about the Van Gogh exhibit, then they go see it, and then they debrief about it. And I just thought it was a fantastic opportunity and a great thing to use some funds for. So do we actually have schedule yet?
I don't have a schedule
Okay.
yet for that, but I've been in contact with the Sierra Arts Foundation. which is
Fantastic.
Facilitate.
So something else I think Nick and I should both report on is we had a phenomenal Reno community cleanup for Ward 2 on May 7th. Do you want to talk about that, Nick?
Yeah, so that ended up working really well. We worked with, was it the Double Diamond HOA? And we were able to take a lot of e-waste as well as hazardous waste. I think we were able to fill up all the bins there, and I'm not sure about the regular waste bins.
Yes, all filled.
It was a great service to the community, and I'm really happy that we were able to provide that.
Yeah, I'll add my 2 cents. It was one of our best cleanups ever. We filled all the bins. We negotiated a price with the hazardous waste people, and at the last minute, they decided, oh, we're just gonna throw in the e-waste. So people were able to get rid of anything with a plug, essentially. It was the first time it's been done in Reno ever. And it was a huge success. We filled up the entire hazardous waste bin, which is paint, your oil, your grease. Every car had paint, every car. And a lot of the people said that the paint was left over from the previous owners, which is very common. They leave it in the garage because they don't know what to do with it. And now these people have the old paint and their paint, and they don't want to go dump it out in the desert, thank goodness. And so I can't tell you how much positive we heard about this. I am planning to do 2 more cleanups. I don't know that Nick knows this, but presuming I can use my council funds this fall, this late summer and fall, I'm hoping to do 2 more. I'm looking for suggestions. One of them I'm looking at is down towards Curdy Ranch, maybe at Brown Elementary, something in that range. Because that's a newer area, people are moving in, a lot of paint, I'm sure, again, a lot of transition with a lot of people. And then one other, I was thinking another area, but we did do the summit cleanup, and there are some residents that are in apartments and everything over on the west side of Virginia that are part of Ward 2. But I mean, that's an idea. Over by where you live, Mimi, is another idea. In that park, maybe in Country Club Estates. Or we could go back to Huffacre because that was a huge success about 5 years ago. So anyway, I'm just kind of mulling it all over. I'll let you know when Nick and I figure it out, but all I know is these cleanups have now become a thing at the city. Every council member's doing them. Going forward, I think every council member will do hazardous waste, which I'm very proud of us. We were the first to do that. Now we're the first to do e-waste. We were also the first to do composting. I have a big meeting on composting coming up in a couple weeks with a lot of people around town that want to do composting. We can't do it because our waste management hauler has to haul it, and it's not in their contract. And so it would be like a special exception. So to get there would take a lot of work. But anyway, all related back to this cleanup, which again was, I mean, extremely well attended. I'm just so happy we can do it. And I cannot tell you how happy the people are. They're telling me this is their city giving back to them. Think about it. Their alternative is to go to the waste transfer station, sit there for an hour, be told that they don't take paint or anything. You have to go to a different place for that. You have to go to yet another place for the e-waste. You have to have like once a year, there's so many restrictions. So they're just very happy about it. So I think the more we do it, the better. It's going to be great.
I know Waste Management, I got a postcard. They're going to be doing another cleanup as well. So I don't know if anybody else
I didn't get that.
got the Waste Management postcard about them taking different types of, I think, the e-waste and the hazardous materials too through a certain
We should
date as
find
well.
out, Nick. I mean, can
I haven't
you
heard about that.
I'll
maybe copy or scan it?
I'll send it to you guys.
Okay.
Yeah, I just got it. So I'm like, oh, good. Somebody else is doing that too.
One more thing, we did a new design on the Relief Reno and we made new t-shirts. So if anybody wants one, all the proceeds above cost go to Relief Reno. It's a very cool design. It takes the city's flag design and puts it into some green colors and some leaves. And we did it in honor of, what am I thinking of, Nick? Not just Earth Day, but we also had Arbor Day. There's a bunch of green things that happen in April. So this design will go April, May, June. And then the city will have another design for the next quarter. The first design we did was a veterans-oriented design, which was, we started for, I guess it was October, November, December. We rendered the emblem in red, white, and blue, very popular.
And right before that, it was the pride flag.
Oh, the pride flag. Oh, back in the summer. Okay. So what it is every time we do one, we give, like for the veterans one, we gave the money to, I think it was the Veterans House.
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay, this one, we gave the money to Relief Reno, and it's not like we're collecting big bucks here, guys. I mean, the t-shirts are maybe priced a couple bucks above cost. So that's where we are.
Okay, thank you, Nick. Okay, now we can move on to the business items. The
More talking. Okay.
B1, City of Reno, Virginia Rainforest
Okay.
Safety Concerns Update.
Okay.
Naomi.
So the issue there, I think everybody knows, is for some 7 years, I've been dealing with the wild horse groups that are working on both reducing the procreation of the horses, so reducing the reproduction rate, as well as keeping horses out of developments, volunteer effort. Finally, the groups came up with a kind of a global fencing plan. And that fencing plan would extend all the way from about maybe Rattlesnake Mountain, just maybe at the north end, all the way south past Geiger Grade, past Toll Road, and attach into Virginia, South Virginia. So we presented it one more time, this time with all the parcels, talked about some of the potential over and underpasses on Geiger Grade. We discussed, well, I think at the end I discussed my goal of creating a trail along the entire Virginia range as one, and I'm continuing discussions on that. If you start building, the horses have to go somewhere. The people have to go somewhere that are now recreating in the Virginia range, which, as you all know, is private land. The whole Virginia range, with the exception of a few little parcels, is private land. And I just met with one of the developers right before this meeting, Sunny Hills and Bella Vista. Those projects were approved. Well, the Bella Vista was approved a long, long time ago. I think they're going to come in for some amendments, but they're going to displace the horses from where they are now. So if you drive to the end of Rio Wrangler, you know, there's a gate there. Right now, it's like a phantom gate. It's like a few strings of wire because it's been broken so many times. Well, just past there is where Bella Vista is supposed to be. And where that road is, I did find out finally, and I've been asking about this, it is private land, but it is a public road. It's an easement. So there's a public easement for the public to drive on what's called Desert Way. Okay, Desert Way. And so the developers out there are going to have to figure out how to keep this public road open with general fencing and how to not get these fences broke down. A lot of gates were put in for daybreak and they've all been busted down. I mean, these are expensive, big gates with expensive, big fencing. They've all been broken within days of being installed. So there's been a lot of correspondence back and forth between the wild horse groups and the developers about what to do next. And I think the city is going to have to get serious about enforcement. You know, you can't just continue to go on people's private property, break their stuff. So I also heard today that it's possible Bella Vista could begin construction as soon as fall, or probably more likely spring. But that's a big deal. I mean, that's where the horses go to water. And so I think most of you know that I've proposed a new watering hole along Steamboat Creek, north of there, basically near Rattlesnake Mountain. There's a section that RTC bought as part of Southeast Connector. They have just deeded it over to the city of Reno in the last couple of weeks. So we now own that parcel. The parcel's along Steamboat Creek. We wouldn't have to obtain water rights. There's a BLM parcel that touches it. And so I just talked to the developers today about pitching in to help us build a wildlife viewing area. That would be for horses and any other wildlife that comes and waters there, because you got to know there's mountain lions in Virginia range. There's been introduced bighorn sheep in the Virginia range. There are a number of endangered or threatened species in the Virginia range, such as monarch butterfly habitat, et cetera. If you block all of those things off from the water, you've got to create water somewhere else. It's a basic environmental concept, but it's not really memorialized in either the regional master plan, which is the Truckee Meadows Regional Planning Agency. They have a master plan and they're working right now on a natural resources plan. In fact, I think they're going to have a workshop pretty soon. Maybe you could check that, Nick. I think it's coming up in like 1 or 2 weeks. In case you're interested in natural resources, there's planning a whole half a day about this. So it's not memorialized in our Title 18. Okay, it is put into our city master plan, but that's policy, that's guidance, that's not law. And so this is a way of getting out ahead of all this drama, you know, with development and horses. And so I'm working very hard on it and I'm going to continue working hard on it. You know, presuming I get reelected, solving these particular set of issues. So that's what I can tell you about the horses.
That was a shifting target. Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate that. I know as we keep getting more developments over in those areas, it's just going to keep moving them.
Well, it is.
You know, they're all over,
You can't just close your eyes to it,
right?
you know.
Thank you so much. Next, we're going to go to item B2, presentation, discussion, and potential direction to staff on meeting length with Nick.
Just get the screen out. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
So at the last meeting, the Neighborhood Advisory Board asked me to take a look at other NAB and board links to compare the links. So I just went through the YouTube recordings and anything that was on the public record. Sometimes I go look at the minutes, look at the beginning of the meeting time and when it ended. As Jack joked earlier, I did not have to watch each one and use a timer. That was available.
So could you that was very fast, Nick. Could you give us this is maybe what you have as an average or?
Yeah, so this is the median with all that data I just showed you, and I know it's a lot. So when we take into account the planning commission, the median meeting length is about an hour and 47 minutes. Without the planning commission, it's about an hour and 44 minutes. The NABs generally with Ward 2 included are about 2 hours in length. Ward 2 on its own is about 2 hours and 41 minutes. And then the NABs without Ward 2, just to compare, is an hour and 23 minutes. So that was the data that everyone here asked for last time. So just wanted to provide that. Other than that, I don't have any other comments.
Jack?
I just, a question is, I see that, Ward 2 now is kind of above the par here in sort of length. Could it be perhaps that, is it possible that we just have more developments coming our way, or are the projects that we're seeing here is pretty cumbersome, including the other ones?
So one that is most comparable would probably be Ward 4 with their development projects. Most of those would be commercial compared to the residential ones here. But I think that's the best one to compare to. So maybe I should have pulled up that data as well. But in average, when you do include them in the average, it does end up being 2 hours.
I will say, I don't know what anybody else thinks, but I think Jack is onto something. For the last 10 years, we have been the center of development for Reno. People didn't want to go up to North Valleys. It's 15 minutes north of Spaghetti Bowl. We're probably 15 minutes south, but this area was planned 1, 2, and 3 decades ago to be the growth area for Reno with the plan unit developments. And so a tremendous amount of growth. That's why I was the most effective as the Ward 2 with redistricting. I had to lose something like 10 or 15,000 people. And I remember my colleagues saying, Naomi, no wonder you're so busy. I mean, I have so many more people than they did. And that means more abandoned cars, more conflicts in neighborhoods, more speeding, more everything. And just trying to be responsive to the public needs. I probably am the busiest council member, frankly. I mean, I've heard it over and over as compared to, let's say, some that are all in more built out areas. Not that they don't too have challenges and issues, but it just seems like we have been over and over things like controversial things like a potential waste transfer station where we got 150 letters in 2 days when they heard about it. Things like Doral Academy that was going to be embedded in a neighborhood that we got probably 200 letters in about 2 weeks. The canyons, these are very controversial developments. We got a lot of letters too, and we had to review Daybreak as well, even though it wasn't in Ward 2. So we also took that on. So we also have, we're just talking about Daybreak and how it touches everything, right at the juncture of Ward 2 and Ward 3. So I do think it is true. We probably also have some very engaged members who do want to discuss the projects. And I would like to hear what the NAB members have to say about all this.
Well, I would have to agree with you. I would say that our development projects are difficult I think that they're in difficult areas. As we all know, the pristine land is built on. So now all of our projects are tough. We've got grading issues, we've got wild horse issues, we've got drainage issues. Some of it, we've had floodplain issues. We've got obviously massive traffic issues. So, and I do think our ward is very diligent and crosses the Ts, dots the Is with vegetation, with trees. You know, we have a big concern about not only the development and what's happening with environmentally, but also pedestrian paths, parks. So I do feel like this NAB is very thorough when they're reviewing these projects and make sure that we, you know, we get into all the aspects and make sure that whatever project it is that it's what's best for the community.
And I'm going to give you an example and we'll come right back to NAB members. An example of that is up where Donna lives near Virginia Lake. So that project that was on Mountain View over near Virginia Lake has been on this NAB numerous times. And now once redistricting happened, it's not even in our ward.
Right.
But it was a very contentious PUD, even though it was 5 acres, it's an infill. There were many neighborhood meetings, many NAB meetings about it. And now it has a project coming in again, but it's not on our agenda because it's no longer in our area with redistricting. We could be here for hours because as Donna will tell us, there are many, many residents up there very concerned about the project. So anyway, enough said, go to you all.
Okay, Mara?
So I appreciate all that. I think that's great information. I don't remember who it was who said it last time, but I think one of the things that might help us to stay on track is to look at the timelines that are put into the agenda and to, especially because if there's people who are waiting to speak and we're going over time, then that's not like, then everybody leaves and it's kind of hard for the last person, right? So like in this case, today we have Meadow Creek commercial at 15 minutes and Taco Bell at 15 minutes. So to really allow those people to keep to their time. I mean, I know public comment is public comment, but that as we're going through the agenda and the timeline that we try to keep as close to that timeline, I think would help us in our process.
Thank you, Mara. Donna?
Hi, I agree with what Mara's saying, in that it would be good to allow the speakers to have their uninterrupted 15 minutes or whatever's on their slated presentation time. But it also seems to me that as Naomi was saying, when I looked at this list, Ward 2 has got a lot of stuff. And it's got a lot of stuff that affects the residents of the city, and things are just going to run long. And I kind of feel like, you know, it's a civic duty thing. We're here to have an opportunity to give input, to ask questions, to get some things aired out, and sometimes things just take longer. And I don't think that should mean, you know, endless overrun of anything. But I also would like to feel like I have the freedom to ask questions or to discuss something, even if it takes a little longer and might be irritating to somebody else, because sometimes, I don't know, what I'm interested is different. It's water-based, it's land-based, because that's my profession. And I'm not sure exactly what's going on here. Is if like we're supposed to all just dial down our comments and make sure that we get out of here in an hour and a half or something? I don't know where we're going with this, is my question, I guess.
I do recall our meetings are usually scheduled for 2 hours, correct?
They're
3
scheduled usually from 5:30
8:30.
to 8:30.
3 hours,
3
yeah.
hours.
So I thought, I was thinking, well, if it's 3 hours, we very rarely have gone over 3 hours. So I think presenters need a fair shake at this, but things get on the order that they get. So it may be that if there's 3 development projects on an agenda, and clearly some of them are easy and some of them are not, maybe the agenda could be reorganized so the easy things they can get done and out and don't have to sit through 45 minutes of discussion on something. But I was looking at that, I was pretty sure we had a 3-hour schedule, and we very rarely go longer than 3 hours. And so I'm not actually really clear about where the problem here is, because there's just a couple of things on the list that were maybe 3 hours and 15. To me, that doesn't seem an excessive overrun from the time that was allotted. And so are we trying to go somewhere with this to make a general consensus on how these meetings should be handled, or?
I can answer, I'm the one who brought it up because I'm new to the board and I just like it feels like a long process. And so I was just curious what the norm was and what other boards were doing. You all have answered my questions, but it was just an inquiry that I was, it just, like, I feel bad getting up and going to the bathroom or moving because it's part of the whole, right? We're all.
I don't.
about it. So, anyway, I'm a definitely like a Robert's Rules kind of person because I go to so many meetings and involved in so many different things, as I know Naomi and all of us are as well. And so I wanted to know an average and a kind of where we've been and where we're going. So anyway, the question was answered. I don't think to me, there wasn't a action item. It was more of a question.
Oh, I
So
see. I misunderstood. I thought perhaps there was an intent to set up some sort of schedule about comments or something. And I was thinking, well, but we all kind of agreed to sit here for 3 hours when we agreed to be on the board. So I'm not sure, like if there was something that was screwy that needed to be fixed or what. So
I
thank
think
you.
allowing the people to keep their time, like to stay on that time is important, but yeah, I mean, and I think public comment and our comments always are helpful to those people. So for me, it came from just an inquiry of other areas.
Yeah.
But with that being said, I actually have to get off. Do you want to keep, sorry,
No,
I'll
go
wait
ahead.
for the next section.
No, that's fine.
I have to go to something.
I just have a brief comment and maybe just a concern. I wouldn't want like the length of time to dilute, the whole process and our comments, but I guess my only concern would be, especially this item, I wouldn't want our meetings to drag on at the beginning and leave our development projects at the end where public comment, where the public loses interest. Like, I'm not quite sure, some people are tuning in right now. I'm not quite sure they're so interested in hearing our discussion and presentation about how long these meetings are.
So maybe what you're saying, Jack, is perhaps a reformatting where the development
Right.
projects could be before other business items.
Yeah, I mean, I would just hate to dilute, for people who are tuning in, I would hate for them to have to go through all this, to mull through this and wait until the presentations for the developments, which
Well,
I think.
I think Jack's bringing up a good point, and I think that I think it's very reasonable to consider moving up the development projects in the B items. Nobody said that, they're all B, so nobody said they had to be at the end of B. And that way, if there are people waiting to hear a project or people waiting to present, we get to it quicker. And the internal actions, maybe could be later. So it's just an idea. I think it's something that the chair and Nick should work on in terms of structuring the agenda a little bit, see if there's something you want to do. That
No,
would
I-
facilitate.
Naomi and I, we've sat through hundreds of public meetings, whether it be flood project, city council, county commission. No, I completely understand, Mara, what you're saying about how long it is. And I do agree, sometimes the developers or sometimes the people that are end of the agenda get the short end of the stick, regardless of what the public meeting is. I 100% agree with that. I would like to say, as the chairman of this group, is that I do want to make sure that everybody's comments and that we do have a thorough discussion. I do think that sometimes, I could probably cut them off and not let them go as long, but I want to make sure, especially with some of these development projects, that we allow the developers, because some of these things for 15 minutes, sometimes you can't present something as thorough and as detailed as it needs to be in 15 minutes, like, some of these canyon projects and some of these other the things that they bring up. So, I think some of the discussion, they do get a little bit sideways. We end up going down some rabbit trails, which I could bring it back to the center, which I'll make sure that I do. But as the chairman, I do feel like I would want to lend a little bit more leniency to the timing of some of these larger development projects, just so that as NAB members, we can be informed and we understand what they're trying to tell us, because sometimes their presentations are horrible and we end up having to ask a million questions as we're going through the presentation. You know what I'm saying? So I appreciate everybody's comments, though.
Tyler,
It's
yeah.
great. And yes, Tyler.
Thanks, Mimi. I can't see everybody who's there, so I may be misspeaking here. I think besides you, Mimi, I may have been on this board the second longest. I'm glad that this came up, and Mara, I really appreciate you bringing this up, because one thing that's always been in the back of my mind is the fact that we're really asking a lot of city staff to be at these meetings for a really long time, and to just be cognizant and thoughtful about the fact that these folks all have lives and families that they're trying to get back to as well. And so that's something that's always concerned me is how much we monopolize their time at times in our discussions. I agree that we're here for a purpose, and we're trying to serve, and we want to make sure we're doing what's best for the city. But just for us to collectively be conscious of city staff as well, I think would go a long way.
No, and I appreciate that, because Naomi and I we've sat at meetings a really long time, like days, trying to wait for our agenda items to come up as well. So thank you for that thoughtfulness and for your comment. Hal?
Yeah, I agree with all these comments. And frankly, the development issues to me are very interesting. So, and especially if we've got members of the public here who've gone to the trouble of coming here, they can give us information also. So we should not cut that information off. I think moving those up earlier, I think will be beneficial to everybody. But I find that sometimes the most interesting part of these meetings. Let's make sure we give ourselves enough time. And this is not meant to be critical. Every once in a while, boards take a look at and what can we do more efficiently. That's all we're talking about here. But I agree with all the comments.
And I'll add one more thing, which is that not all council members attend. So that's another 15 minutes that can come right off the top, that many of the NABs, the council member maybe attends for their part or maybe doesn't attend. And so again, that could shorten the meeting. You know, if there's no council report, that's.
No, we need you.
No, we're not putting that out.
I'm just
Not
saying
cutting that out.
that maybe when you're looking at averages, when you think that at some of the other NABs, I mean, Nick has told me this anyway, that council members, I'm not at those NABs, so I don't know what happens there, but they may or may not attend all the time. And so that's another, is that true?
Yeah, and normally if they do attend, they just report on their liaison report.
They what?
They just speak or report when it comes to their liaison report.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so,
Well,
okay.
I think Naomi has her broader knowledge and a lot of different projects, and I think it's really valuable to me anyway to give her the time to tell us what's up, because it's a lot of things that crosses boundaries that we may not all be aware of. And so I wouldn't want to suggest that Naomi just cut her words out, because it's very interesting. Maybe we can discuss wild horses at the end of the meeting instead, but I think we're all interested in the horses.
Yeah.
You know, so the rearrangement I think would be helpful. Tomorrow's point about the developers not making them sit around waiting and the public not sitting around waiting, I think that's a really great idea. But we are scheduled for 3 hours. I personally have 3 hours blocked off in my head, and I don't, if I'm sitting here for 4 hours, it would be annoying, but we do have 3 hours. So if it needs to take 3 hours, I just, it's like, this is sometimes the only opportunity we have to actually speak directly to a developer. And I know in the Ward 2, when I used to cover my neighborhood, lots of really good things happened at the NAB level before it went to Planning Commission. And we're just kind of getting that going again with the NABs, I think. But I mean, we've seen developers be responsive to things that have been said on this board. And in my neighborhood, there are a lot of things that have been changed at the NAB level before it ever went to PC. And that's a really great way to do it, I think. I mean, it really is helpful and a benefit to the residents who are affected. So I just feel like, yeah, we're gonna sometimes need the whole 3 hours. Sometimes we might only need an hour, but I think all of it's really important. So.
Well, I'm going to give you all a shout out, and that is that while you have 3 hours, it sounded like the median time is 2 hours and 41 minutes, as I recall Nick showing us. So it sounds like on average, you're here less than the full time allotted. So that's a good thing. And then I think just having the conversation makes everyone a little more cognizant of process, which is always good. And Tyler looks like he has.
Yep.
some-
Could I make one additional question? Statement. I feel like lately, and I feel like this is wrapped up in this conversation, I have participated a lot less because I feel like the conversation has gone on for so long that I don't want to add to what is already an incredibly long conversation around an issue. And so maybe, and I don't know how we could structure this, but if we as board members could limit ourselves to 2 questions each, or 1 question, which is the most pertinent, or whatever makes the most sense there. I just feel like I've seen myself take a backseat in some of these discussions because like I said, I already feel these discussions going on way too long. And so I refrain at times from getting involved. So for whatever that's worth, I would love to maybe think through that at some point as well.
Well, Tyler, I'm sorry if any of that was because I talked too much.
You guys are cute. I think it's just a good check-in. Personally, I think you guys are doing a great job and you're doing a service, and just the commitment of time monthly to review the projects. And Tyler, thanks for sharing your perspective, because that's important to know. We do not want you to take a back seat.
Absolutely not.
And maybe we could ask the chair to make sure that she goes around to everyone at least one time round before we
Yes.
go into a second round of question. Maybe that could also help as an idea.
Absolutely. And we need, I think as board members, we need to make sure that when we start asking questions, they're about what's being presented and not moving into or asking questions about things that are not being presented or things that are possibly could be proposed. Like if we're looking at doing a zone change, we can't start talking about what the subdivision is going to look like. You know what I'm saying? Even though we want to know, inquiring minds want to know, we need to kind of stay on that topic of, are we looking at just, a zone change, or we're doing a master plan amendment or whatever it is, and not start going down because we really want to know what that development's going to look like. And we're all guilty of that. So,
Well, and I'm going to say that often the developers provide that information.
yeah, sometimes.
And so it begins the conversation.
Yeah.
and stuff. So, okay.
Donna?
Yeah, just be brief about that. I realize, and I think I brought this up at the last meeting, which I think people were getting frustrated because I asked so many questions. To try to circle around, I think, and we could talk about this another time and let the development projects move forward now, but for me, I realize that the proposal is thing A and thing B. It's a master plan change, and there've been conversations on council for years about unlinking zone changes from developments. And I've always had an issue with that, because why do you need a zone change to do what with, right? But we're only supposed to talk about if the zone change fits into the master plan categories. And I think that's because we're not a regulatory board, this is a really great opportunity for us to explore the bigger picture. I mean, the PC and council are limited to making findings for the specific requests, but we have an opportunity to make it be broader. And although I know we're only supposed to comment on what's at hand for approval, the unlinking of those two things, I think, has created quite a lot of havoc in the way the city's been developing over the last few years, because we end up with spot zoning everywhere, because we don't know what's really going there. So it's not like a bigger picture that we're really filling in. And that's a thing that's been brought up at council a whole bunch of times. I don't know what the right way to go is, but I just wanted to let you know that sometimes I do this before that reason, because this is the only opportunity to have members of the public see a bigger picture about what this really means. And I think that's really important, because those questions are not germane to council or PC, only the request at hand. And I realize we're supposed to only deal with the request at hand, but maybe I'm just taking advantage of the opportunity to air some bigger laundry or something. But for me, it's important, and feel free to just stop me. You're the chair. You can say, okay, you're going down the wrong track. I'm totally cool with that. But it is important to me, and I tend to ask those kind of questions. So if you feel I'm getting too long in the leg about that, then just stop me. That would be all right.
No, Donna, thank you for that comment. And, if it does start getting down that where it's getting a little bit, and sometimes it gets a little bit too complicated for those that aren't in that profession. So I think that we could have you take that conversation kind of offline and with Councilwoman Dewar or with the developer, or all three of you, maybe to kind of hash that out when it starts getting a little bit into the weeds.
Just
So
let me
I
know.
appreciate those comments. And yes, you're right. Some of that stuff does need to be fleshed out, but sometimes it's at a level that's a little bit higher than, or a little bit deeper than, maybe what we want to talk about.
Or
Well,
that
you
most,
should just guide me on that. I'll take
Yeah.
your lead on that.
All
Okay.
right, thank you so much.
Okay.
Do we have any other comments on this?
A lot of this conversation has been focused on development projects. So I did want to let the neighborhood advisory board know that the Ward 5 NAB has asked for a presentation on what the county is doing at the neighborhood level for their development projects. So just since we've been so focused on that part of the discussion and moving it up to the beginning of the meeting, I thought you all should know that the Ward 5 NAB has asked to hear about what the county has done to change up their process for public input on development
Do
projects.
you know why that is?
Why they changed it?
Why they're asking the county what they're doing?
I think they liked what they were doing. They do like neighborhood level meetings that they're required to do compared to the neighborhood advisory board, although our applicants are great about showing up, they are not required to come to the neighborhood advisory boards.
So you're talking about their CAB, their Citizens Advisory Board meetings, similar to us, those meetings?
Yes, but development projects don't go there anymore.
So where do they go?
They go to neighborhood meetings. Like the developer is responsible to host a meeting to talk to the neighbors in the area that are affected about different issues that typically like the NAB would talk about.
So is that under their development code?
I believe so, but I'm not super familiar with it. I just know that they had asked about
Should
it.
we-
Yeah,
Yeah, can we hunt that down, that the Washoe County's development code for, that particular topic on developers having to go out individually instead of bringing it to their Citizens
Sure.
Advisory Board?
Do you want that like to come back to the NAB?
I don't know if anybody else is interested in that. I would just like to read what that code is.
Sure.
If, Nick, why don't you just send it out to everybody? So the Neighborhood Advisory Board members could see, what the Washoe County code is on these development projects.
Sure.
I would be sad if we didn't get to see those development projects so personally. I think our board members too would like to, you guys would like to still keep seeing those development projects.
Yes.
Definitely.
Okay. That would just be yet another meeting that we'd have to go to. Okay, with that, any other comments? Anybody sitting behind us? Everyone's like shaking their head, yeah. Okay, all right, now we're gonna go to the development projects, yay. Okay, so we're gonna go to the first one's going to be B31 Meadow Creek Commercial Center condition amendment, I can read. A request has been made for an amendment to special use permit LDC 1800078 to allow bars and restaurants with alcohol service in Washoe County, Duraskar, Duxbury, Pay-specific plan district with underlying neighborhood commercial zoning standards. The subject request is located on a portion of 3.87 acre site located approximately 110 feet north of the intersection at Wedge Parkway and Little Star Drive. The subject site has a master plan use designation of single-family neighborhood and parks, greenways, and open space. Who's here? Hello.
Hello.
Welcome.
We don't have a quorum.
Oh, we don't have a quorum now.
Yeah, Al and Mara just left at the same time, so we don't have a
do you
quorum.
think they fell off or do you think they?
Mara said goodbye and Hal mentioned earlier in the meeting that he would be leaving.
So that means we can't hear it?
We are more than welcome to hear it, but we can't take any action. But also this isn't an action item, so it's okay.
Yeah, it goes to being a non-meeting because we don't have a quorum. They told you earlier that they could?
They told us in the meeting, Hal said that he had to jump off and.
Do you mean in like a comment that I can't read?
I'm pretty sure both of them mentioned verbally.
Okay. Okay, well, here we go.
Where would you like me
Um,
to sit?
Wherever you'd like, I mean, you can just sit.
Are you gonna put up the presentation?
Yes.
Could you sit like right over there on that?
Is anyone here from to talk about the Taco Bell project?
No.
Okay, so that's one less item on the agenda.
Okay,
for everyone's knowledge.
Okay,
Give me 1 second.
thank you for having us tonight. For the record, my name is Melissa Lindell. I'm a planning consultant, and I have with me Candace Stengel. She is the senior property manager and the owner's representative and applicant. Next slide, are you gonna, I'll just point you.
This works.
This is a 3.8. Thank you. This is a 3.87 acre. Sorry. 3.87 acre site. It's located south of Arrow Creek Parkway, west of Wedge Parkway in Ward 2, South Reno. Here's a blow up of the vicinity map, and you'll see the site located there. This was approved in Washoe County some years ago, and the site is in this area called the Roscar section of a specific plan. The area in pink, and it extended at one point all the way to Virginia Street. And those hashed areas across the street are apartments where the ice rink is in South Valley's park. This, the DeRoscar section of which this is a part was originally anticipated for 8 acres of commercial, general commercial. DeRoscar is built out now with single family residences, and this is the only commercial area that's in there. So it's only 3.87 acres. Here's another blow up of the site showing the surrounding single family development. To the north is open space of the site. It's a branch of Whites Creek. South and west is single family approved with along with this commercial center years ago. And east is Wedge Parkway and the Reno Ice Arena and South Valleys Regional Park. This commercial site and tentative map for the adjacent area was approved in December of 2017, sorry. Single family is complete, the commercial center is under construction. This original zoning that was approved in the county is called specific plan district. It didn't allow uses, and it tended to be very flexible. At the time of the approval, specific uses in the commercial weren't really known. So instead of crafting a whole specific list of uses, it was determined at that time just to adopt the NC neighborhood commercial uses, because they probably were going to cover a lot of the desired uses, even though the specific plan area called for broader general commercial uses. So for reference, neighborhood commercial allows a lot of uses such as microbreweries, distilleries, wineries, multifamily, kennels, commercial centers, restaurants, and so forth. Restricted gaming, any warehouses. Here is a site plan of the center, which is under construction. And although many of the options allowed in the center, are allowed, this center is specifically designed for a mix of contemporary and popular type uses, kind of niche uses, coffee and dessert shops, specialty retail, restaurants with and without alcohol service, medical professionals, fitness studios, and boutique wine, specialty cocktail, craft beer type establishments. Here is a picture of an aerial of it under construction. You'll see the large building in the background. That's the Reno Ice Arena and the South Valleys Parks. But we're in the foreground there. There's 4 buildings that are under construction, and the total center was approved for 35,000 square feet. Here's another picture looking north, left to right. There's 4 buildings, D, C, B, and A in the foreground.
And just a quick question, Melissa, I came up and this is under construction now, right?
Right, this is current pictures right
Yeah.
now. Here's looking south, buildings B and A. So the subject of this application is a previously approved condition, number 14. It went through the whole process along with the tentative map. Businesses, and this condition says businesses allowed shall be those allowed in the neighborhood commercial zone. Again, it was a special planning district that could have had a lot of flexibility, and they just kind of threw the neighborhood commercial line. The request is for a slight modification to allow 2 things. 1, restaurants that wish to serve alcohol, and boutique wine and specialty cocktail bars, craft beer establishments. So the first one is the restaurants with alcohol service. Restaurants are allowed in this development with and without alcohol service right now. But if there's an application for a restaurant that has alcohol service, they have to go through a minor conditional use permit, which is costly and takes time. And it's got a fee, $3,700. Following approval of the minor use permits, they still have to go through and pay for building permits for tenant improvements as well as business and liquor licenses, all reviewed by staff again. So it's kind of a redundant process. In this situation, since this center's already been approved and the buildings are not going to change, this requirement would allow every time a restaurant comes in, and you know how sensitive restaurants are financially. They come in, they go out. We hope they're not going to go out, but it kind of puts a burden on, because every time there would be a changeover or a new restaurant, you have to go in for this minor special use permit. And this would even be for a breakfast place that just simply wants to serve morning mimosas or Bloody Marys. And so we're asking for this to be a permitted use without having to go through an additional process. The second request is to allow the boutique wine and specialty cocktail bars. Now currently, which is odd in the NC zone, microbreweries, distilleries, wineries are permitted, and you can have them with a drinking establishment or an eating establishment. But if you just have a standalone wine and specialty cocktail bar or beer establishment, you cannot have them unless you have a minimum food prep area of 200 square feet. This requirement to be associated with a microbrewery or a restaurant with minimum size food prep is not really logical or warranted in this case. I equate this, if you're familiar with some of the other areas that have small boutique wine areas like South Creek, Whispering Vine, those kind of uses. This special development area does allow for the flexibility, and it did anticipate GC zoning in the county. So we're asking for this to be allowed permitted by right. Again, no new buildings or changes, facade changes are going to be associated with, and staff is going to be able to still review the building permits for interior improvements, business licenses, liquor licenses. And then we thought, to help ensure compatibility with the surrounding uses, we wanted to add some restrictions to these uses, indicating closing hours no later than 11 p.m. And we wanted to put in a clause for the center: no gaming operations, no table. That's not the intent. The intent is for a boutique center with some specialty uses. So the proposed condition just allows those to be added to the NC zoning, the boutique wines, bars, the restaurants. You'll see in the condition we added closing hours no later than 11 p.m. and no restricted or non-restricted gaming operations. So with that, we think this request is reasonable. It's a minor request. We think with the restrictions, it's going to help to ensure the compatibility. And we thank you for your time and are available for any questions.
Nick, can you put the people back? Put our beeps back.
Well. Oops. Are we open? for
Yep.
Questions?
Yes, go ahead, Donna.
Okay, if you were to go back and look at the map, you have all these single family residences that butt right up onto this commercial zone. Is that correct or not? That's what it looks like to me on this map.
That is correct, and that was all approved in one project in 2017.
Right.
So it was the intent to have the commercial there all
So
along.
I don't know much about the details of Washoe County zoning, but would there have been a reason why they only wanted alcohol things associated with food? Or do you have any?
When it came through the process, it came through the city of Reno. It was
Oh, right.
originally approved in Washoe County, which much broader ranges of general commercial, which would have allowed all these uses.
So what's your buffer between where you want to have alcohol service and parking lots and the single family houses?
Well, it's already, could we get back to, let me show you the site plan. It's already been approved with the buffers and the landscaping there. That's, this commercial project's already been approved and could have breweries and wineries and distilleries and gaming and all kinds of different
Is allowed.
different things that are allowed.
I see. So you have quite a bit of room between your.
Once you get it
commercial-
set up, you can always pull up, put it
Yeah,
on.
just,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which,
Slide.
were you thinking?
I
Probably
was
the
going
next one.
for the, well, let's go for a aerial.
Well, it looks like you have quite a bit of between the parking lot and all the buffering around that between off of Wedge Parkway and Arrow Creek. They front on that, so they're actually not, the buildings themselves aren't back onto that single family housing.
Right, let's go to the,
There you go.
so the buildings are already there. It's, they're slated to be open soon. So there will be no changes with
Right.
this minor amendment to the buildings or parking or anything. It's already there. Let me see, there's the site plan. So the site plan is already in play.
Right. Is there any reason that staff would not give you a minor conditional use permit? I'm not arguing against it. I think it's a fine idea. I'm just curious, like,
No, no, there isn't, that I know of. It's just,
no code thing or anything? Is that a? That's the
It's
city
just,
of Reno.
that's correct. That is a requirement in that NC zone in the city of Reno. And it's probably has more to do when there's a building that isn't already built and in play, whereas you're coming into a neighborhood, like if this had not been part of a big project and a new build, and the houses were already there and this was coming in, then that might come into play more. But this project's already been approved with the residential and it's already developed.
This sounds silly, but I would think this would really depend on the people who live there, to have, because they didn't know, it sounds like you didn't know what the use was going to be. There was a whole lot of possibility for uses in this area. And so then people moved in and then you're allowed to do all this stuff. But minor conditional use permits don't get a public hearing anyway, as far as I know. So staff can
Right,
just
it's just a burden on
the development.
on restaurants,
Right.
because, sometimes you, like the Squeeze In restaurant, they just serve mimosas and Bloody Marys. And they have, every time you want to have a breakfast place in there, and I'm sure that there's going to be a breakfast place coming in here, it's just kind of a burden when staff is going to review all that anyway.
Oh, well, if the condition is changed and permitted by right, there's nothing for them to review really, except, oh, okay.
So
I mean,
they would review the tenant improvements. They're going to review everything inside the building. Outside the building's already been reviewed. It's already been approved. So nothing is going to change outside the building. So they're going to review inside the building and a liquor license and a business license.
So pretty much, Donna, the development is there, the conditions are there. Basically, what they're asking for is to make it the process a little bit more seamless, so that when the people come in, if they do have an alcohol permit, that they don't have to apply for this minor conditional use permit and spend an additional $3,731 to get it reviewed and then also the other thing that's going to make it easier is if you have like a boutique wine place, that they don't have to build out a 200 square foot food area, that they can just have a wine bar. So it's basically just simplifying their alcohol, the alcohol permit for them within the establishments. It's already there. This is just making it easier for them to not have to go through two processes and not have to build out a kitchen. Because right now, as it sits, they can have alcohol permits. It just is a little bit more cumbersome for them to have to apply for it. So this is simplifying the process for them.
I'm actually more wondering about, not about this project. I understand what you just said. That makes a lot of sense. Thank you for the explanation. And wouldn't object to them doing that. I'm more thinking about how this translates into, we really don't follow any of our rules anymore. So it's a precedent setting thing. Can you put a condition in here saying I don't have to follow the Title 18? I don't mind. I'm not gonna say anything negative about this. I think it's easier, nicer. I like those kinds of places. I wouldn't want the squeeze in to go have to pay all that money. They're gonna get stamped anyway. I'm thinking about it more in a precedent setting sense of, oh, now we condition away our own Title 18 rules.
And with that, I will let you take that up with the councilwoman.
Thank you very much.
on a
Perfect timing. Okay, I'm done.
Different note, and so it's a very good point, but I don't think that's
Not
not
relevant.
our concern with this project this evening.
I think Jack.
Jack?
Yeah, and it sounds like we repeated it, but I just want to be clear. If this wasn't allowed to go through, it would be the business's burden, the individual business's burden to pay the fee and to apply for the license, right? It would be on the business.
Right, every time.
Right.
And then they'd have to build out a 200 square foot area for food prep.
Is that a different thing?
It's part of their,
It's part of the,
right here.
you can't have a restaurant with alcohol unless you have 200 square feet.
Of a food prep area.
So my question would be, Melissa, why do you think that is a rule today? Why do you think this requirement exists?
Well, I think it was part of the,
Not for this project, but in general,
in
why?
general, I don't know.
You've been around a really long time.
I know, I know. But when the code got changed, I don't know, maybe the idea of a rowdy bar, the dark old.
Yeah.
Bar.
Oh, give them some
you know.
food while they're drinking. It'll make it.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, exactly.
the only comment I have is that at council, we've had that usually when there's residential adjacency to a bar, with or without food, and I'm thinking about the one on Plum Lane that ultimately became a marijuana establishment, but prior to that, it was a food establishment, and they wanted to extend their hours. And there was an apartment complex right behind. And there was a lot of concern about the late hours. And I know you said 11 here, so that's a different thing, but I know they wanted extended hours and they wanted it like by right without having to, have a special use hearing.
Mhm.
And I remember it did come to council. There was a lot of conversation about interesting facts, things like the dumpsters were located over by the apartments, and the people closing up the restaurant and bar at 2 a.m. would have to take all the trash out and bang the dumpsters. And there's all these residents sleeping right there, right up against. And I don't know how close the adjacency is here to these buildings, but I'm just giving you some examples of the things that have come to council that relate to this. And so a lot of these rules were put in, I'm going to say in the 80s, 90s and 2000s about residential complaints about, operational issues. And the time to look at operational issues was in that special use permit. And one thing that people could say, this has to go to planning commission, or does it just go to staff?
This will go to planning commission.
This one will. So one of the things they may ask is just, if you allow it by right, every single place here could become a bar restaurant, right? There'd be no control that maybe there should only be 3 family bars here instead of 5. Or, and I don't know how many, it looks like there's 20 Is that right? About 20 different
Units.
Spaces,
units.
Yeah.
So I think those are the kind of questions they'll ask you is, well, should we allow 50% of it or 25% of it or every single unit to be a bar restaurant? Is there any control? And Melissa, maybe the answer is it's going to go to staff for review, or is it? That's my question to you.
It will go to staff for review. Every single project in here has to get a business license, has to get tenant improvements.
Yeah,
They have
but
to
those
show
things
them
don't look
plans.
at residential adjacency. Those are just about meeting like a building standard or something like that.
Yeah, meeting the building standards and, you know, in this case, the project's already completed. It's already been through the public hearing process in
Right.
2017. And there are a lot of, to me, it's kind of strange that they would allow breweries, distilleries, and wineries.
Yeah,
And you can have
as many as you want.
as many as you want in there. You can have mini warehouses, you can have
Yeah.
kennels, you can have all kinds of things. That's not the intent in this development. Right now, we've got the coffee and dessert shops, the specialty retail. It's more of a niche little place like South Creek. It's not
Mayberry
gonna-
Landing.
It's not, right. It's
Well,
not-
and even Ranchera. I mean,
Yeah, it's like-
at the villages at Ranchera.
Right.
So there's like 5 restaurants in there. I'm sure they're all allowed alcohol, but they also have a mix of retail in there.
Yeah,
And they also made sure not to have competitors in there. So if you have, you have more expensive and less expensive, you have more casual and more formal dining.
right.
I mean, I think the developers of that did a really good job of balancing, what they're offering to the community around. But I think, I don't know, but it might be good to see what they did at Villages. Was that developed as a PUD or SPD? Did they allow, unfettered? Or did they retain control over each of the establishments? I have no idea.
It's a different zoning. There is hardly any zoning in the city of this specific plan district and
SPD.
SPD. There's
Yeah.
hardly any things left and anything left.
Yeah.
But
But they brought it back in January 2021. We specifically put in SPD back into the code because it's so useful for unique situations. I mean, I was one of the advocates of putting it back in. But anyway, regardless, I'm more asking questions and just trying to understand. I too don't have a specific opinion, but I do want to caution you on one thing. In 2017, to my knowledge, most of the residents were not here when it was approved. There was no resident because they were approving, as I recall, because it came to the SNAB and it came to the council, they were approving the whole development.
right,
And so you had no homeowners to opine, right? Because they didn't exist. The houses didn't exist, the people didn't exist. And so somebody brought this up before. One of the NAB members is just, now there are people, what do they think?
and we did reach out. We have a resident in the
Audience?
audience right now, and we also have the leasing agent, and I'm sure the leasing agent can tell you it's not their intent to have the whole thing as restaurants, because that's not a good business mix,
Yeah,
especially restaurants, go in and out. But we
Okay.
did reach out to the neighbors with a separate letter, and we are very willing to talk to any of them about it, but right now, we can go in and have a winery and a brewery and a distillery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not
Yeah.
have to have food associated with that. So it's
Yeah.
kind of a little,
quick question for you too. You're coming here, but you have to had a preliminary conversation with our staff.
yes,
And what was their take?
their take was,
Seems okay.
it seemed like a minor
Yeah.
request.
Staff's available if you have a question.
Oh, they are?
Yeah.
Where are they?
They're on Zoom.
Oh, well, would that be okay?
Yeah.
I didn't know we had staff here.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I might not always point it out, but they are always online and available.
Who's our planner?
Brooke.
I believe it's Leah, it is for the project, but Leah Brock is
Oh, okay.
in attendance today, having some issues. So,
So what does she think?
I think they're bringing her in, but
Oh,
is that what you're doing?
yes.
promoting her to a panelist.
There's like these houses right here that are right,
I know.
their backyards are right there.
I know.
You know, a nice site plan if they do it.
Hi, Leah. Leah, I just asked out of just curiosity whether staff was good with this or had a concern, because usually the staff will make a presentation prior to the applicant, and I didn't even know we had staff here.
Yeah, I've only been with the city about 5 months, but my understanding was that staff was no longer doing the presentation prior to the applicant at the neighborhood advisory board meetings. I brought that up the last time somebody said that. But just, I'm available to answer any questions you might have. I do have a little bit of background because I did read the staff report from the SUP approval back when the condition was stipulated that this be neighborhood commercial. And it seems to me that in the staff report, they're discussing that condition related pretty much to signage. They never really talk about the commercial aspect in anything other than just the discussion about signage. Like Nick said, I'm not the planner assigned to the case. It is Brooklyn Oswald. He didn't seem like he had any problems with it. I asked him to give me a briefing on it before I came tonight. The staff report basically says commercial building permits must demonstrate compliance with all residential adjacency standards outlined in code, including a solid wall with minimum 10-foot landscape buffers along the project's residential perimeters, limitations on signs facing the subdivision, noise restrictions, etc. Condition number 14 restricts commercial use to those allowed in the neighborhood commercial zone. And then the only other mention of that neighborhood commercial zoning district is again discussing signage. Staff recommends that any proposed entrance signs to the residential portion be consistent with colors, materials, and architecture of the project and adhere to the sign standards in the NC zone. Code allows for 60 square foot monument sign up to 12 feet in height with indirect lighting and limited wall signage. And then that cites condition 15, which is the other one that discusses that neighborhood commercial zoning. So I don't believe, based on the staff report, that restaurants serving alcohol was necessarily a concern for this application.
Okay, well, thank you for that. Leah,
Yes.
does anybody else have anything to add? Any comments? Jack?
I think Donna. Yeah.
Donna?
Oh, yeah, I was gonna say, if anybody cares, it occurred to me that since this isn't, it's a SPD, it wouldn't necessarily set precedent for everybody else to be able to say, oh, but you're already getting rid of minor conditional use because it's a condition of the SPD. So it doesn't necessarily translate to other projects having a leg up in terms of precedent, right? Because it's
Correct.
just for this. So that condition could have been set that way at the outset because it's an SPD. Is that correct?
Correct.
So, okay. Okay. And what about, can you get that stuff waived? You can't waive the requirement for a minor conditional use permit, can you?
No.
Because there is that underlying zoning district stipulated in this special use permit, the only way to change that would be to amend that. And the language that the applicant has proposed is one way to amend that. But of course, you could change that verbiage to amend the conditional use permit to waive the requirement for a minor use permit for restaurants with alcohol service.
Well, does this end up being a zone change since you're changing the permitted uses in the SPD?
No, it's an amendment to the approval,
So who sees that? Just the planning commission?
just the planning commission.
So in effect, it is an amendment to an SPD, which is a zoning. So it is an amendment to essentially the zoning, right? I mean,
It's an amendment to the conditions.
yeah, of this particular zoning place,
This particular.
which is
place.
why I like these SPDs, because they're so unique to the place.
Right.
you know?
It is- Okay.
Anything else from anybody?
Just one
Board
more
members?
question, I think. Melissa, you said you had a neighborhood meeting?
We have notified the neighbors.
Oh, and did you
With
just
the-
notify that you wanted to change a condition, or did you notify that very specifically what this thing was?
We sent a letter to the neighbors
Good.
explaining it, saying, you know, what tenants were coming in and if they had any questions and when the planning commission meeting was and so
Good.
forth this meeting. So we've reached out.
Great.
Okay, Melissa, thank you so very much
Thank you.
for attendance this evening. We appreciate your time and coming.
Is there any comments maybe from the public?
Any comments?
I like the idea of the conditions on the back end, the no gaming, no restricted hours.
Right.
Those are helpful to frame the problem. especially
Would
when
you
they're-
say it again, and can you say come up and say your name so we can get that on the record?
There's no record at this point.
Oh, okay, but
You
still.
guys lost a quorum, right?
We did. So, but what are you saying?
So, yeah, I was commenting as a homeowner in the adjacent space.
Right?
That we have been in contact with them, so they have been outreach. That's why I'm here tonight, because they made me aware of this opportunity. And then with regards to the matter at hand, I like the fact that they're putting in, and again, I'm not the homeowners association lead, I'm just an individual representing an individual, that they put in the requirement that it ends at 11, that there's no gaming. We've also liked the intent, but it would be good as, you know, no kennels. That was part of the original when we bought the
So
home.
you put that into?
Yes.
We have not specifically put that in.
It was part of the conversation.
But we could, but it's not the intent. The intent is to have a boutique little center with specialty shops.
Which we think is a good idea. I just like the fact that they put the qualifications on the back end. This can't happen, that can't happen. To some of the earlier comments about once this gets done, then new people show up, and if there's no bounding.
I think that's the general concern, and that's probably what the planning commission will be concerned about, is not the now, but the future, the 10 years from now, the tenant mix changes. Maybe it is even sold to a different operation, which we just saw, I think at South Creek, right? The Grove closed, and I think there was a ownership change potentially. I mean, these things are common, you know, no one's gonna own one thing for 100 years, right? I mean, there's gonna be some changes over time. So I think, and this is not a for or against, this is just an awareness thing, is that, you know, zoning is forever, right? Unless it's amended, and usually they're not going back to be more restrictive. It's usually to be less restrictive. So I think it's a legitimate concern, you know, what you're saying, and it's probably put good bookends around it.
I would like to point out too that Mr. Hudson is probably the closest
Neighbor?
neighbor to the whole thing, right?
Yeah, our lot is adjacent
Jason?
to back of the development.
And you're saying you're fine, the way it's constructed now.
Yeah, well, obviously that within the confines is discussed, yes.
Thank you so much for your comments and coming out. We really appreciate that. We always like hearing from the neighbors. That's why we're here. So thank you for that. Board members, anything else? Councilwoman Dewar, anything else? All right, with that, well, thank you guys so much for
Thank
coming.
you.
Enjoy the rest of your week and your weekend.
Oh, great. Yeah, happy Memorial Day.
Yes. Is that here now, or are we at
Nice to see you
Memorial
all.
Day?
We're at Memorial Day. Yeah, already. Okay,
It was great meeting you both.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks.
you.
Nick, with that, now that we don't have a quorum, there's this Taco Bell extended hours.
They're not even here, so
Okay, so we're just gonna,
just gonna say goodbye to our friends on the other line. That's all we can do.
Yeah, what was that, though? Can you tell us what it was about even?
Yeah, they were just asking for extended hours.
From when to when?
I don't know.
11 PM to 6 AM. They want to be open all night.
Oh, they want to be open 24-hour? It looks like our planner has her hand raised.
Hi, Leah.
So, so the application has been withdrawn. I just spoke with Grace on it earlier and they withdrew the application. The intent wasn't to keep the Taco Bell open 24 hours. It was that they have deliveries coming in the middle of the night. And the neighbors had complained about idling trucks in the parking lot. So they were trying to expand their hours to allow for that. But they've withdrawn their application.
Okay,
So would the truck still come in the middle of the night or what's the story there?
They're not allowed to.
Oh, so the trucks have to make daytime deliveries within the hours of operation?
That is correct.
And do you know what the hours of operation are?
6 a.m. to 11 p.m. I mean, is the typical allowed hours.
Okay,
They wanted to be,
what's that?
and so that's why they wanted to make it 24 hours.
Yeah.
11 to 6.
Okay.
all right, thank you. All right, well, then with that, we'll move on to item C, board commission.
No, there's no more items.
Oh, no more, never mind. And with that,
Goodbye.
we are done, adjourned. Have a lovely Memorial Weekend, everyone, and we'll look forward to seeing everybody. It will be June next month by the time we meet again, which is,
I do want to mention that I appointed 2 more members to the NAB. One is a member, one's an alternate, and I'm continuing to look at applications, so we should have more people at the next, they've already been appointed, but they couldn't start today. They had to start at the next meeting, is my understanding.
got it. Okay, thank you, everybody. Donna, Tyler.
Thanks.
So I got this letter